So welcome to today's event, which focuses on how can investment funding work for diverse startups. Uh, this is an event that we at MSD UK have been working in partnership with UCL. I'm going to go through housekeeping for a few minutes, and then we will start with the speakers. So for best user experience, please follow these steps. Make sure your Zoom name is in format, first name, last name, and company name, so you can be identifiable. Use to ask question, use the Q&A function. And this is the agenda. So my name is Irvin Picari, and I'm from MSD UK. I'm a program manager. Then we will have Jonathan Greenbaum, which will talk about Innovate UK. Then he will introduce Emily Knott, head of diversity and inclusion programs at Innovate UK, and Rachel O'Brickett, EDI programs lead at Innovate UK. Then at 3:15, we're going to have a startup perspective from Alessa Eason, who's the founder and director of Next Steps. At 13:35, we're having the diversity focused investor perspective from Rodney Appia, who was the chairman of Cornerstone Partners. At 13:55, there's a case study on the work that Cornerstone Partners are doing with Tectonic. So we'll have Rodney again with Nana Perry, who's the founder and CEO of Tectonics. At 14:20, I will do a quick presentation to let you know about our program, our pitching competition, which is the Innovation Challenge. So if you want to tag us and mention us on social media, you can use MSD UK and LinkedIn. You can use tag us on Twitter and Facebook. And please use this hashtag investment readiness, startups, hashtag startups, and hashtag MSD UK events. So before I go to Jonathan, like I said, my name is Irvin Picari. I'm a program manager for MSD UK. MSD UK is the leading organization that promotes ethnic minority businesses in the UK and connects them with large corporates. We've got a network of 75 corporates at the moment, and also we're working with at least 400 ethnic minority businesses. And what we do, we get the businesses and the corporates to work together so we can make corporate supply chains more inclusive. This is, in a nutshell, what MSD UK does. But in the past few years, we have focused on also providing support for startups through our innovation hub, where we do a lot of workshops. And we also got a pitching competition, which I will talk to you about later, which is the Innovation Challenge. So now I'd like to invite Jonathan Greenbaum, Innovation Advisor at Innovate UK Edge in London. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll invite Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Evan, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonathan. I work as an innovation and growth specialist at Innovate UK Edge. We're really excited that we get to partner up with MSD UK on a new event. We've been working closely with MSD UK on a number of events throughout the years. We've done a number of investment readiness workshops in the past years. Maybe some of you attended, but here we're here together to talk about EDI, right? But first of all, I wanted to give you a quick overview of what Innovate UK Edge is, because Innovate UK Edge is a fairly recent program from Innovate UK, building up on the legacy of the past Enterprise Europe Network program. And essentially, Innovate UK Edge is here to help and work closely and enable ambitious, innovative SMEs to accelerate their growth and achieve scale as well. And we do that by doing different activities with companies, SMEs that we get to work with. We help the companies source funding as in public funding. We help companies identify the relevant Innovate UK calls for them and help them to apply to these calls to augment their chances of securing grant funding. We also help them to source finance, as in private finance. We have a network of angel groups, early stage VCs that we work with in the UK, but also internationally, and help companies secure private investment by doing warm introductions, helping them to do due diligence on investors. We help companies exploit business innovation to grow and scale. We do that by helping them protect and harness their IP, but also we help them with their innovation management activities. And we also help companies enter new markets to grow and scale. And here's really where we build on the legacy of the Enterprise Europe Network. We're connected to a number of chambers of commerce and industries and research organizations internationally. So we do help companies. We link them up with international experts in different markets and help them to scale up their technologies. Innovate UK Edge is a program that is a national program. You have different contact points based on where you're based geographically. I'm based in the London area and work with innovative R&D intensive London-based SMEs. But depending on where you're based, you get to access different specialist support. So that's for Innovate UK Edge, but what I wanted to do today as well is introduce our two speakers from Innovate UK that we have with us today. The focus today is very much on equality, diversity and inclusion. Innovate UK is running a number of programs in EDI, and I wanted to introduce you today to Emily Knott, who's the head of diversity and inclusion programs at Innovate UK, and also to Rachel Obrike, who's the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Program Lead, and they'll talk to you about the programs that Innovate UK are running at the moment. So here's to you, Emily and Rachel.
Hi everyone, and thanks for that introduction, Jonathan. And I've got some slides. I'm just going to share my screen. Let me put it onto mode. So hopefully everybody can see that okay. So yeah, hi, I'm head of Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Programs at Innovate UK. It's great to be here, so thank you to colleagues from MSD UK for inviting us to take part. I'd really like to talk to you a bit about Innovate UK and the work that we do, and specifically the work that I do leading on promoting equality, diversity and inclusion. And we're going to do a bit of a double act. So I'm going to talk for a bit, and then I'm going to hand over to Rachel to tell you a bit more about some of our targeted programs on this agenda. So hopefully by the end of this today, the businesses in the room, virtual room, will get to know more about Innovate UK. Hopefully you'll learn some stuff that you didn't know already. And hopefully you'll see that there are some opportunities for you to engage with us and hopefully be successful with some of the programs that we have to support innovative businesses. And also I'm hoping that there'll be more to come in terms of Innovate UK and MSD UK working together on events like this and activities like this in the future. So let me just kick off by just really some high-level information about Innovate UK. We're the UK's innovation agency. We've been around since 2007 in one form or another. We used to be called the Technology Strategy Board. And essentially what we do is provide support to businesses to help them innovate. And when we talk about innovation, our definition is the successful commercialization of ideas into products, services, new business models. And we're wanting to support innovation that is helping to grow the economy, but also really importantly, bring societal and environmental impacts, positive impacts for the UK and globally. And when we talk about support, we've got financial support. So we have lots of different grant funding competitions operating at any one time. We have loans that we can provide to businesses. We have investor partnership programs where we have our grant funding running alongside equity investment. That might be angel funding, it might be venture capital funding or corporate venture partners that we work with. And we also have contracts actually that we issue to some of our competitions. So there's a wide range of different types of funding opportunities. And then we also have the non-financial business support. So you've heard Jonathan talk about Innovate UK Edge. We also have our KTN, which is a networking organisation all about helping businesses find connections they need to help them innovate and grow, whether that's a connection with another business, maybe with an academic partner, or with, you know, a whole suite of organisations and stakeholders that can be of benefit to businesses innovating. And we also have a network of catapult centres as well, but I'm starting to go into all of that today right now. So I just wanted to show you this slide, which really talks to the kind of impact that we've had as an organisation since 2007. So just to show you the sorts of things in terms of return on investment. For every £1 we've invested into UK businesses, that's generated £7 back into the UK economy. 100,000 jobs have been created from the businesses that we've worked with, and you can see the numbers of, you know, projects and unique businesses that we've worked with, and overall investment levels on that slide too. So now moving on to the work that I lead on, as I said, you know, promoting diversity and inclusion, and really we split that into two broad areas. So firstly, looking at how can we properly embed and consider equality, diversity and inclusion in every aspect of the work that we do, whether that's developing a new strategy, putting in place a new programme of support, looking at the data we collect, looking at how we monitor and evaluate our activities, but also thinking about inside our organisation, how do we empower and upskill our staff so that they understand this agenda and they can make a positive difference in the role that they have in driving this forward. And then the other area is the targeted activity. So these are programmes that we specifically put in place to tackle underrepresentation where we see it, address inequalities in the funding landscape for innovation, and where we believe we can make a positive difference. So Rachel's going to talk to you specifically about some of our targeted programmes in a moment. Just put this slide up. I won't talk through it because we haven't got a lot of time, but you know, why is the UK's Innovation Agency placing so much importance on this agenda? Well, there are lots of reasons. There's a really strong evidence base for why this is something we should be looking at, and this slide just kind of shows you some of the evidence that we think is important in this context, and that we should be listening to and aware of and drawing upon. In terms of our strategy, we are just at the moment developing a new 5-year strategy for UK business innovation, and as part of that strategy there is what we're calling an Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Foundation, and this slide just sets out, gives you a heads up really of what's going to be within that foundation in the strategy that talks about the outcomes we're looking to achieve on equality, diversity and inclusion. So an innovation system that values difference, where any great idea for innovation can succeed regardless of where the origins of that idea are from, and very much about kind of making innovation attractive, exciting for future generations, so we get more diversity in the pipeline of talent for the future. We want more businesses in the UK to be taking this agenda seriously, and we think that we have a role to play in helping to make that happen. We are supporting innovation, so we want to make sure that innovators are thinking about designing in and factoring in equality, diversity and inclusion considerations, and thinking about positive EDI outcomes right at the beginning when innovations are being developed. And again, we have a role to influence that and shape that. And then there's a huge big piece of work around data collection, so that we can understand what's happening across the innovation system and look at where disparities, inequalities may lie, and how we can target our interventions in the future in a way to make more of a positive difference. And I just quickly want to run through just some of the sorts of things that we're doing. So we're doing a lot of work to reach new audiences, work in partnership with organisations that can help us to do that. So organisations like MSD UK, you know, that's very much what we want to be doing, developing links with organisations that kind of share overall what we're trying to achieve, and reach businesses, people that can benefit from Innovate UK support that might not know about us and need that enhanced visibility and potentially some additional support to get them to the place that they can put in high quality applications to benefit from that. So we have a Women in Innovation community at the moment, which has over 7,500 women in it, and a Young Innovators community of over 2,500, just to give you an idea of some of the scale. And we're doing lots and lots of events and providing guidance to this community. We're doing work with schools, thinking about inspiring the future generations, as I said, that being very important. And we have another partnership here with Founders for Schools. We do research, and we publish that research, again, looking at what are the challenges and opportunities around promoting diversity and inclusion in business innovation. So this is a report that was published last year. And then on the embedding side, how can we influence and shape positive moves in this area, particularly around businesses who are applying for our support. On the data piece, we now have an EDI survey. We're collecting data on all applications for our funding, and we also are asking businesses to address EDI related aspects in application forms for our funding, which is really important too. So now I'm just going to hand over to Rachel to just quickly tell you about some of our targeted programs.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you to MSD UK for this opportunity. It's been a fantastic event that you put together, and thank you to everyone on the call. In the last few minutes, I'd just like to talk through some of the targeted programs that we have at Innovate UK. And the first one is the Women in Innovation Awards. So we found that just 14% applications for our funding came from women, and this was in 2016. And 1 in 3 women say that gender had negatively impacted their career in innovation. And so at Innovate UK, we wanted to support women who are at a critical stage with their business, where an award would enable them to take the important step forward. And so we're working at Innovate UK to ensure women's ideas are heard and they have the support to turn them into successful businesses. And so in 2020, we have our 80 award holders. We've done 3 rounds or 3 waves of the Women in Innovation Award. The very first one was in 2016. And so these women are inspirational role models working on game-changing innovation. So we found in 2016, our very first campaign, that we had 71% uplift in women-led applications for support. So we see here that there's really a large impact in the work that we do here at Innovate UK, and a great opportunity as well. Apart from the Women in Innovation Awards, which is one of our targeted programs, the second award is the Young Innovators Award, which Emily had mentioned already. So in 2017, we partnered with the Princess Trust to run our very first campaign. And this campaign was really targeting young people within the ages of 80 and 30, and from diverse backgrounds, to develop their innovative business ideas, and for some of the young people that were already in business. So we have a whole string of support. Apart from financial support, we have other support available for young people. Again, research showed that 2 in 5 young people had ideas for products and services they thought could sell, but 82% considered the business sector difficult to access. So within this targeted campaign, we're able to provide that support, we're able to advise and actually help the young person to take that business to the next step. So the award provides grant funding, and as Jonathan mentioned at the beginning, and Emily touched on this, apart from the grant funding, we also have innovation mentors, and then an allowance to start and grow sustainable business. So there's a whole string of support that is available to the young person to see them develop that innovative business idea. And then the last slide I thought was really important for me to just share today to everyone that is on the call, that this is really timely that MSD UK invited us to this event today, because we have competitions that will be opening in the next few weeks, I would say. The very first one is the Young Innovators competition. So this will be opening in mid-June. And the second one is our Women in Innovation. And we have a new competition opening late summer. Please keep an eye on our social media platform and on our website, because the competitions, we're getting ready to open these. And lastly, we just like to touch on the new network. So apart from this, we would like to encourage you to search for other Innovate UK competitions. These are usually on our website and also on the Innovation Funding Service platform. It's really been a big privilege for us to share some of this with you. I'd just like to hand back to Emily, if Emily wanted to add anything else, but thank you.
No, I don't think we need to add anything else other than just to say thank you again.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emily and Rachel. We actually do have a question from the audience. If we can sort of answer this question quickly. So they're very keen to know how Innovate UK panelists are selected. And do you have a policy on ensuring the judging panels are diverse in terms of gender, race, and disability?
So at the moment,
and how do you tackle unconscious bias?
Okay. So all of these very good questions, and they're all part of the work that we're doing around the embedding piece. So we are at the moment in a much larger organisation that people maybe know. So we're one council within an organisation called UK Research and Innovation, and there is a move working with all the different councils within UKRI to put in place policies around the sorts of things that have been raised there. So different councils have slightly different approaches to this, but we're all taking it very seriously, and absolutely there is a desire to ensure that any kind of decision-making bodies or groups that we pull together, we're thinking about diversity when we're setting up those groups. So it's very much, I don't think we are not where we need to be. It's not perfect the way it's working at the moment, but it is very much, it's acutely there in people's minds when they're thinking about it. In terms of actual policies, there are policies, but there isn't anything at the moment that probably pulls it all together, and that's what we're working towards. Was it the unconscious bias?
Yes.
Yeah. So we, again, training is part of what we'll be rolling out. We are developing new training at the moment, so we've done a whole suite of training for our staff. We're going to be working actually with Jonathan and the Innovate UK Edge community with getting them much more kind of up to speed with equality, diversity and inclusion, thinking about in the role that they have, and within our assessor community as well. So there has been training previously, but we want to kind of update that and go out with a fresh kind of focus and emphasis on this.
Okay, brilliant, Emily. Well, thank you both for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. So if you stop sharing your screen, and now we're going to move to our next speaker. So what I will do, I will share my screen to introduce our next speaker. Who is Alessia. So Alessia is the founder and director of the Next Steps group, and I know Alessia because Alessia has been part of the MSD UK network for some time, and Alessia was a finalist in our 2019 Innovation Challenge. But without further ado, I would like to invite Alessia and to start a talk.
Thank you, Irvin. Hopefully everybody can hear me well. Yeah, okay, so
yeah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Essen, and I'm founder of Next Steps Group. As Irvin has said, I have been part of the MSD network since MSD UK network since 2019 after participating in the Innovation Challenge. But my story sort of starts quite a while before then. So I started this project, Next Steps, which is essentially wearable technology to optimize physical performance whilst minimizing risk of injuries. So we are creating smart insole technology that sits at the foot and can tell us about some biomechanical physical movements in your body and how that can perhaps help protect your physical body as you grow and participate in activities such as running and sports. The idea for this project started when I was doing my undergrad at the University of Portsmouth. And for my final dissertation, I was doing a live project with a lady that suffered from MS, and she was a permanent crutch user. So the task was to design her a crutch much more equipped to deal with her the issues that she was having, such as frequent falls, as well as pains within her palms because of the pressure of putting her body force on her hand. Throughout that experience, I spent a lot of time with her and observed that her physical movement, her gait, her walk was a big contributing factor, obviously, because she had MS and it's a degenerative disease. And I became interested in how the information that we hold within our foot that we really can't tell by eye, and how that could perhaps help us optimize our physical movement better. So I continue to create smart crutches for her. And then after my degree, I focused a little bit on more research around this, this area. Within myself, I was an athlete when I was in high school, so I was always around injured athletes. Myself, I didn't get injured often, but I suffered from locked knees, so my knees would lock, and I always wondered why that was. So after my degree, I went and I worked, and then I decided to go and pursue a master's because I wanted to pursue this project further, but I did not believe that I had perhaps the acumen necessary to start a business. So I completed my master's at the University of Brunel, and after that I participated in some projects. So I helped an organization launch a book on sustainable urban development on Kickstarter, and I worked with a Nigerian startup called Doctora, which was basically, we call it the Uber for healthcare. So we provide you convenient healthcare wherever you are. After a few years of doing that, I just could not shake the itch of this project. So I decided to pursue it, and I joined the Hardware Accelerator in late 2018. And through that accelerator, we were supposed to develop a prototype, and working with Brunel University as well, who was my alma mater. We met with the biomechanics and rehabilitative psychologists there to basically make sure that what we were developing was what the industry needed, what our users needed, and what the market needed. So they helped us with the sensors we were going to use, the placements of the sensors. But unfortunately, that program at the Hardware Accelerator did not produce the results that we wanted. And so we had to, and I guess I will stop here and talk about some advice I would give when joining programs as a startup founder. I think it's really important to make sure that you know what you want when you join a program, especially when it's your first one and you're developing your product. Know what you want, make sure that organization is aligned and committed to helping you succeed. I think if that's not the case and you notice that from early on, then I would suggest to communicate that and have that conversation. And if the alignment still isn't there, especially if there's equity involved, I would suggest, from my personal experience, to move on from that program. So that was my experience, and that was basically what I did. Sorry, just one second. So then after the accelerator, I wasn't really sure what my next steps would be, because it wasn't the most positive experience. And I developed some self-doubt within myself, some anxiety about whether or not this was really the right path for me. And that's when a good friend of mine sent me the Innovation Challenge from MSD UK, which sounded like a really great program, but it took some time and some chasing from Irvin and everyone for me to apply. And at that same period, my grandfather had passed, so I got to go home to Jamaica, and I felt like my grandfather had given me a gift because I got to go home and sort of realign myself. And so whilst I was in Jamaica, I applied for the Innovation Challenge, got through and got to the finals, met some absolutely fantastic founders, similar to myself, with similar experiences. And I think being able to convey those various experiences was really great as well, because you then, the self-doubt you had, you kind of were able to say, well, okay, that wasn't me, because that's happening across the board to all of us. The Innovation Challenge was also where I met my technology partner, the Centre for Process Innovation. The Centre for Process Innovation is based in the north of England. And with them, we've been developing our insoles. Our relationship is ongoing, and we've been working with them since the start of 2020. Obviously, Corona happened, so it slowed down a lot of development for us, but that gave us time to develop some relationships. So we were able to develop our partnerships, we're able to explore other partnerships, and we're able to develop our relationships as well. The other thing that I wanted to explore was investment. So in late 2020, a good friend of mine from the MSD network introduced me to an investor, and this investor basically liked the product, liked myself. Obviously, though, we weren't in his sector, so he wasn't investing, but he introduced us to many other people who could give us feedback in the investment sphere. I knew that we weren't ready to go for VC money, and I'll talk about how we've been funding ourselves in a bit, but we weren't ready to go for VC money, but we wanted to understand the KPIs that we needed to hit as a hardware product to be VC investable. So we had those conversations late 2020, and it sort of helped us. So at 2021, we were able to put together quite a robust roadmap for the next 18 months. And that's the roadmap that we're developing to at the moment. So let's go back and talk about investment. This project has been funded through Regional Development Fund. So I mentioned our partner is based up in the north of England. So through them, we were able to develop our project program through the ERDF funding. So as a founder with very little cash, I've bootstrapped as much as I can, but the ERDF funding has really helped us to de-risk a lot of our technological questions, and we continue to do that now. And I would definitely suggest, if you have especially a complicated product, a hardware product, to look outside of London and look what else is out there for you. The only thing that we had to do was register our company, our operating office in the north near our partner, to be eligible for that support. There are other mechanisms within the north of England and other regions of England that might be suitable for you, that only calls for you to have a registered office. So I would definitely suggest you explore all that's available to you, and don't just stick in the area that you know. Try and explore the rest of the UK. Universities are a minefield of help and support if you know the right places to go. So we've worked in the past with the University of Brunel in this beginning of our project, and we continue to have a relationship with that academic. We worked with, we're currently based at the University of Hertfordshire's Business Incubator, and with them, they have what is called the University Enterprise Zone. Again, you can access a lot of support through them, whether that's academic support, which is then funded by Innovate UK or an EU body. And that's how we have been funding ourselves. So it's mostly been grant funded and bootstrapped. This was quite a conscious decision of mine, because we're building hardware. There is a need to de-risk a lot of what we're building, especially perhaps if you aren't, let's say, an ex-Big Four company or a big company that, you know, you have the knowledge and the connection. You sort of have to prove yourself a little bit more. So we had to find the funding from other places. My other experience in startup as well, building other startups as a designer, but also as a co-founder, I wanted also that we are very careful about where we take money from and how we take that money. So it was really important for us to take this journey, try to access money that is free-ish. Obviously, it has its stipulations, but it's beneficial to us and it gives us time to work on making sure that we're serving the real user needs and the real market before getting money that's attached to constraints that might push us in directions that we don't necessarily want to go. So that's been our journey so far. Currently, we have got a website up and that's what we're working on putting up now, all our marketing content. As I said, that's because we wanted to de-risk ourselves. We're currently now working with Olympic coaches. Some of these coaches and athletes as well will be going to Tokyo. And the hope is that we in July or closer to in the summer months, we will be releasing some content with people that we've been working with and their thoughts on what we're developing and how it's helping them in their athletic journey. So I think I will end with basically my challenges as a Black female founder. I think it's very good to be aware of who you are in this space. So whether you're a Black woman, you're just a woman, be aware of who you are, access your network. My network has been invaluable to me from legal advice to strategy support to investor introductions to even hardware development has been absolutely pivotal in my journey. When people approach you, if you're a no person, try and consider the value of doing that, having that interaction, because one of our best advisors, we were approached by a different project, and I met that person on this project, and he's been pivotal in introducing us to our Olympic. To our athletes and the coaches that we've been working with. So also leave yourself open. Don't say yes to everything, but leave yourself open to opportunities because they'll come to you and you just have to be open to receiving them. What other advice? Team. I think don't be too quick to form teams. Do what you can. Approach who you need to approach, but be very mindful and make sure that you are aligned with the people that you invite to do this project with you, because it also can be the be-all or end-all of how you progress as a business. You want people that can support. You don't want people that are going to yes you all the time, but you want people that can contradict you, but you want to also be aligned in your vision and future goals. So don't feel like you have to have the best team at the beginning. You can do a lot on your own. I did a lot in the beginning on my own, and then my colleagues and friends came on later on, and I continue to do a significant amount on my own, but I now have quite a robust team and a robust advisory backing behind me, and that's been invaluable. So I think that's it for my story. I hope you guys were able to keep track of that. Thank you very much, Ervin. I'm Alicia and I'm founder of Next Steps.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alicia. That was a great talk. Thank you very much, and some brilliant advice. But we do have a question from the audience. So someone wanted to know what was the name of the Hardware Accelerator program that you went to?
So I was part of the Hardware Accelerator. It's based in West London, called it's called Central Research Laboratories.
Okay. And yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Alicia? No, it doesn't look like. Well, thank you very much, Alicia. Oh, hang on. I think we do have a question. Let me just check. We do have a question. No, we don't. It's just a comment. So,
That's okay.
but thank you very much for your time. I'm going to share my slides again, and in a second, I would like to invite our next speaker, who will give an investor's perspective. Our next speaker is Rodney Appia, who's the chairman of Cornerstone Partners. Rodney used to be an investment banker before he became the chairman of Cornerstone Partners. He's been an investor with, he's got 15 years worth of experience in financial services. Rodney, if you would like to come forward, please.
Hi guys, can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Irvin, for that.
I'm just going to stop sharing my screen.
Great, brilliant. Great. Well, look, it's a massive privilege and pleasure to be here, guys, and really love the work that MSD UK are doing, and I feel like it's a huge honour to be here. Apologies that I've got slightly sore throat, so bear with me, but I'm really excited to kind of share my perspectives around investing, and particularly focusing on backing Black and diverse founders. Just a little bit of sort of background from my context. I've been in financial services for about 15 years. I was originally a investment banker at Merrill Lynch, and then I worked for two venture capital firms, the first being the Business Growth Fund, which is a £2.5 billion fund focused on writing minority checks of between £2 million to £10 million across the UK, but also was a director and investor at Foresight Group, which is a £6.5 billion investment firm that focused not only on infrastructure and renewable investing, but also regional investing, writing check sizes of £1 million to £5 million. In recent years, I've privileged to be chair and co-founder of Cornerstone Partners, which is one of the leading angel groups in the UK focused on backing Black and diverse founders. And we write checks of between £25,000 to £200,000 at seed stage, typically under EIS or SCIS, into businesses led by diverse founders across a wide range of sectors, including technology, but also looking at other sectors as well. We've backed more than 16 businesses, and we've deployed £1.1 million of our own capital. And we've completed 4 investments this year, and we're seeking to do a number of other investments in a number of different sectors, including leisure, technology, and consumer. So that just gives you a bit of background to Cornerstone Partners. In addition to our investment activity, we also run an annual accelerator focused on Black and diverse founders that we launch between October and December of each year. It's a 9-week program where we support founders through a series of different sessions, touching on areas that will help them to grow and scale their business, whether that includes B2B sales, customer acquisition, marketing, building out a team, things with regards to HR, etc., effective pitching, and that culminates in a demo day where one of the founders gets an opportunity to pitch for up to 100k of funding with Cornerstone Partners. And the third thing that we do is we provide and commission research into the intersectional barriers faced by Black and diverse founders in accessing venture capital. And we launched our inaugural report a few weeks ago, which was widely sort of acknowledged and was a relatively detailed piece of work. It was about a year in the making in terms of looking at some of the essential barriers to investing for Black and diverse founders. So with that background, I wanted to just sort of share with you a few sort of thoughts from myself as to, as an investor, one of the things that I've noticed, particularly with regards to Black and diverse founders, and what I think we're trying to do at Cornerstone, but also other organisations that I'm sure are doing some fantastic work. And I think the first thing I would say is that it's quite clear and apparent that we don't operate in a genuinely inclusive investment landscape. And if you look at a number of different metrics, but primarily if you look at gender and ethnicity, Female founders continue to be underfunded. If you look at the last few years, I think less than 2% of funding has gone to female founders from the venture capital community. And if you look at Black founders and other ethnic minorities, again, less than 3% of capital has been provided to individuals of that nature, of that background. And one of the reasons for that, and there's a number of different reasons for that that were sort of highlighted in our research report. But I think the primary reason, at least from our perspective, is the notion that there are a number of different sort of variables at play. And just to kind of be a little bit more specific about that, one of the things that we found is that being a founder and being in a fortunate position where you can set up a business, where you can take that sacrifice, where you can put some money and saving away to develop an idea, often where your financial situation can be quite stressed at times, is an opportunity that's relatively limited. And so as a consequence, you have a situation where you have a number of founders who come from relatively similar backgrounds. Either they went to top tier universities, or they've been well capitalized by way of their financial situation, or they're in a very, very strong position by the fact that they've been serial entrepreneurs in the past. And all these things tend to act as signals to investors in their ability to be able to support, in their ability to be able to raise capital going forward, and their ability to be more successful in growing a business. And what that does is it tends to exacerbate the situation where founders from underrepresented backgrounds, whether it's female founders or ethnic minority founders, tend to be overlooked and tend to be left in a position where they struggle to raise capital for their venture, either at seed stage or at scale-up stage. And one of the things that we're trying to do is try identify those intersectional barriers and try to find make recommendations to create a more inclusive investment landscape. And so with that, what I wanted to do is to just briefly share with you some findings from our report, which kind of touches on this in a little bit more detail. And this report, by the way, is available to anyone who's keen to kind of learn a little bit more about it. I'll send the link into the group after I've sort of finished speaking. And this report was done in conjunction with Diversity VC, which is a non-for-profit organization focusing on improving diversity within venture capital, Engage Inclusivity, which was our research house, and Bohurst, which is a leading data provider for high growth businesses. And as I mentioned, just to kind of put some data behind it, in terms of our key findings, we found that underrepresented founders were being excluded from the opportunities of equity investment at a very early stage of business development. Black founders were particularly underrepresented at pre-VC and VC funded cohorts. Black and racially minoritized women and non-binary founders were the worst represented, and 3/4 of founders came from advantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, and hardly any founders came from families living on welfare entitlements. And then the final finding was that the majority of all founders were graduates from prestigious universities, and VC funding is more likely to go to founders who have been to the most exclusive universities. And so just picking up on a couple of these points, because I appreciate that some people may think that these findings are to be expected. You would expect a founder, some people would argue, to come from the most prestigious universities and to come from an advantaged socioeconomic background. We would counter and say that actually the skill set required to be a successful entrepreneur is very distinct and different to being very strong and capable academically. And you can see a number of notable founders, successful founders and billionaires that either didn't go to university, so take the example of Richard Branson, or struggled at university for various other reasons. And so are we potentially overlooking a pipeline of really exciting founders who struggled in a traditional academic environment, but could be very, very capable in an entrepreneurial environment? The other kind of key point probably worth mentioning is that a number of founders, as we found in our research, came from advantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, and that's very much sort of driven by the practicalities of starting a business. Often in those initial years of us establishing a business, you're working on a relatively tight and lean budget, and if you're unable to successfully raise a friends and family round, or to have sufficient savings in order to be able to develop your business, you unfortunately don't have the opportunity to create create that enterprise unless you are fortunate enough to have the ability, either from your family, from your friends, from other kind of sort of helpful resources, to give you the flexibility to develop that idea over a longer period of time. And this is important because what tends to happen is that we find, and this is from our experience at Cornerstone, a number of founders from underrepresented backgrounds that tend to be from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds tend to focus their time on developing lifestyle businesses that are cash generative and have relatively low barriers to entry. And as a consequence, their ability to have the wherewithal and the capital to create generally innovative VC backable opportunities is much more limited. And so naturally, those opportunities tend not to attract VC backing, and therefore exacerbate a situation where underrepresented founders, overlooked founders, tend to not receive funding from VC investors. And so that's a cycle and a pattern that we wish to break and we wish to change by encouraging more funding at the early stage to enable these innovative businesses to have more runway to develop their solutions and move forward. And so that was another kind of interesting insight. And just to provide a bit more data behind it, what I thought I would do is just pull out some kind of key points from the kind of the analysis that we provided. So a couple of things worth mentioning here. Looking at location, if you look at all of the businesses that we surveyed, and I believe that we surveyed north of 2,000 businesses, like 1,300 at pre-VC and just shy of 690 at the VC funded stage. And pre-VC, as we defined it, were businesses that were successful in raising angel funding of 100K or above, and had a team in place of, I think, more than 2 or 3 individuals. Whereas those businesses at VC funded stage were businesses that had announced an institutional round of more than £1 million. What we found is that the split in terms of representation was such that 53% of those founders were white, 24% of those founders were Asian, 16% of those founders were Black in terms of the London split, the London ethnic population, as per the GLA 2016 data. But then when you translated that into the number of founders that were successful in raising that capital, those figures dropped quite considerably. And so I believe that in the case of Black founders that were able to raise funding that were across the UK, it was circa 3%, 2.9% of Black founders were able to attract VC funded, even though the vast majority of VC capital is deployed in London, where 16% of the population makeup, according to the GLA data, is of Black origin. And then similarly for Asian founders, I believe that the figure was something in the order of 7% of Asian founders were successfully raising venture capital funding, even though, again, within London, where there's a bias of venture capital investing, 24% of those individuals were of Asian origin. So that suggests a disconnect between the representation of individuals within that city, that highly cosmopolitan city in London, and the businesses that ultimately attracted VC capital. And as I said, I believe that that's largely driven by the socioeconomic circumstances of those founders. It's driven by the intersectional barriers that they face. It's also driven by the networks that they tend to be able to access by way of being aware of and have exposure to venture capital, which is something, again, that we're trying to address at Cornerstone. Another interesting finding that we touched upon, which I wanted to spend a bit of time on, was just looking at ethnicity in particular, and what was really interesting, and I think this was raised in a number of reports recently. For example, the race report, which obviously there was some strong views on either side regarding that report. One of the things that were raised was the fact that the issue with the term BAME is that it tends to group very distinct categories that have very distinct problems into one bucket, and that causes a number of issues. And this data that we captured on ethnicity, for example, really started to break that down to a little bit more detail. So, for example, if you look at Black founders, which, as I mentioned, are underrepresented both at the pre-VC stage and the VC funded stage, what was curious is that where Black founders were successful in graduating from pre-VC to VC, actually that percentage went up. So it went from 1% up to 3% of VC funded of firms being led by Black founders, which suggests that, you know, where Black founders are successful in at least being able to sort of develop their idea, be able to kind of prove out the solution, being able to validate the proposition, they were more successful on a relative basis in being able to raise institutional capital. Whereas actually in the case of Asian founders, the reverse was the case. So 10% of Asian founders were successful in raising funding at pre-VC stage, but that figure dropped to 7% at the institutional phase in the case of Asian founders that raised more than £1 million. And then again, if you look at within Black founders in particular, there are certain categories of Black origin where there seems to be a particularly acute challenge as it relates to raising venture capital. So if you take, for example, Black Caribbean founders, we weren't able to identify any Black Caribbean founders that were able and successful to receive investment either at the pre-VC phase or at the VC funded phase. And I'll just caveat that data point by saying that this data was captured in the year of 2019, looking at all businesses that announced funding and or were captured by our data provider, Bohurst. And so that was quite a compelling statistic. And that suggested that even within the ethnicity of Black, which obviously is quite a broad term, there were some acute challenges that were being faced amongst different individuals of Black origin, and to what extent was that driven by the venture capital environment that they faced? To what extent was that driven by perception? To what extent was that driven by access to venture capital, networks? To what extent was that driven by preconceived ideas of what that founder is, what they do, how they operate? All of these things were important considerations and something that we looked at in a lot of detail. So those are kind of 2 points I wanted to raise, and there's a lot of information in the research report that I can come on to, but I am conscious of people's time. What I would say that from my experience as an investor, there are a couple of things that I think are really important in terms of trying to address the balance and trying to create a more inclusive investment environment. I think the first thing we need to do is we need to encourage a more representative investment environment for diverse founders, and you know, there's lots of data and research that suggests that where you have investment teams that reflect the founders that they're seeking to support and to back, that tends to lead to better numbers in terms of female founders and ethnic minority founders that receive backing. And so, you know, for example, a number of investment firms that have gone on a bit of a recruitment drive in terms of increasing the number of females in their investment teams, that has had a direct correlation in terms of the number of female founders that are now starting to receive funding. And similarly, you know, if we're keen about improving the level of venture capital that's attracted by ethnic minority founders, again, that needs to be driven by having a more representative investment base made up of decision makers, not simply analysts, that can help to kind of unlock that deal flow. So that's the first point. I think the second point is the notion of networks. And I think, you know, the private equity industry, the venture capital industry historically has been, you know, naturally leaning on their own networks in order to find and identify deal flow. And in order to back the exciting founders of the future, you know, those founders may not necessarily be part of our existing networks, and we need to be intentional in creating what we refer to as an open VC environment that enables those individuals to engage with venture capital, even if they had no prior knowledge or relationship with us as investors. And so there's a number of initiatives that I think Diversity VC, for example, have championed around creating a more open, inclusive VC environment. You know, this notion of kind of having open office hours, this notion of you know, generally having an open application form that enables people to gain access to a decision maker without having a warm introduction. All of these elements are very, very important in trying to remove the barriers to talented founders gaining capital. And that kind of leads on to my last point, which is what we're not, you know, advocating here is lowering the bar for you know, a talented, exceptional founder. We're not advocating that at all. I think what we're trying to advocate is is an environment that gives everybody, irrespective of background, the opportunity to gain capital to scale their business. And if we're intentional in terms of how we build our investment firms in order to achieve that, then I believe that, you know, the next 10, 15 years will look very, very different in terms of the makeup and representation of those founders. Because, you know, as we say at Cornerstone, you know, we believe that talent is equally distributed and opportunity is not. And so how do we redress that balance? How do we look at our processes? You know, do our processes incorporate unconscious bias? Do our processes naturally gravitate to a certain type of founder that may be in line with our investment thesis, but may not necessarily, but may, you know, I consciously or unconsciously exclude founders from a certain background or from a certain socioeconomic standing? These are the things that we need to spend time looking at and digesting in more detail. One practical thing, for example, that we do at Cornerstone is we run regular webinars and seminars around venture capital. You know, how does venture capital work? What is venture capital? What are the key terms that you would see in a heads of terms? You know, why would you consider venture capital versus other sources of funding? What benefit or value could venture capital bring to your business? What does a venture backable business look like versus a lifestyle business? And again, raising exposure and awareness of venture capital is absolutely critical in increasing that exposure to talented founders that may or may not consider venture capital as a viable route for their growth journey. So I think with that, I will stop unless anybody had any questions.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you for the great insights. And thanks for the great work that you're doing. I think we do have a question. Actually, it's a very straightforward question. Can you put your email address in the chat, please, Rodney?
Yes.
But I do have a question for you, Rodney. I do have a question for you. So I just wanted to ask about how vibrant is the diverse funding ecosystem in the UK, and how does it compare to other countries like the US, for example?
Yeah, great question. And what I'll do is, in the research report, I've just sent the link in the group. There is a page that talks about the ecosystem in more detail, because there is some fantastic work that's being done by a number of different individuals. And I'll pull that page up now. So this is the ecosystem as we see it. I don't know if you guys can see that on my screen. And we've sort of categorized it into various buckets. So equity investment, community organizations, incubators and accelerators, alternative investment, reporting, thought leadership, and training and development. And so what I would say is there was a number of really, really fantastic organizations doing some great work in this space. If anyone would like an introduction to any of these organizations, please shout. There's some fantastic resources out there for diverse founders to access funding, gain a better understanding of venture capital. And, you know, one other point I probably should make is that venture capital is not for everybody, and it may not be necessarily right for your business. But to the extent that it could be, there is a growing, you know, increasingly more mature audience that are available and ready to hear more about this.
Great, thanks, Rodney. We got another question for a member of the audience. If they would like to pitch to you, what would be the process?
Yeah, sure. So you can either send me an email, and I've just sent my email address on the chat, or you can go directly to our website, so www.cornerstonepartners.co.uk. And as I mentioned, you know, in an effort to embrace a more open VC model, we have an open application form. If you scroll to the bottom of the front page, there's an open application form. Fill out your details, upload your deck, and someone will get back to you within the next 72 hours.
Thank you for that. There's another question as well, and someone wanted to know, how have Cornerstone Partners been received in the VC community, and has there been any proactive interest in partnerships from other VC, or have you find the environment challenging to do business?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question, by the way, whoever asked that question. I would say that the awareness of needing to do something, you know, I think is very evident. And I think what's really exciting is that we have some fantastic friends. We've got some great co-investors. So a number of the deals that we've completed, we've co-invested. So we've co-invested alongside Atomico, alongside SFC Capital, alongside a number of other sort of angel groups. We've got some great support and buy-in from the UK Angels Association, where we was recently highlighted, secured finalist award for Angel Group of the Year. And so there's a real, I think, desire to try and create a more inclusive environment. I think at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing, which is we're all trying to find exceptional founders. And I think at its core, I think people recognize that exceptional founders can be found anywhere. And so to the extent that we can do, we can make changes to our processes, to the way that we operate, to the way that we work, in order to unlock those, any initiatives that will support that endeavor, people tend to be generally supportive of. So yeah, we've had some great support thus far in terms of our activity.
Thank you, Ronnie. This is the last question, and the question is, what are the options for SMEs which are not SEIS or EIS eligible?
There are angel groups out there that provide funding in lieu of SEIS or EIS. So the Cornerstone, we're one of them. So we like for SEIS and EIS to be in place, but if it's not in place, that's not it's not prerequisite to us assessing an opportunity, because I think SEIS and EIS are very attractive, but fundamentally a good founder is a good founder. So that's the first thing I would say. Secondly, there are alternative sources of funding. So you've got platforms like Lendo that provide debt funding for businesses. You've got platforms like Unlimited that provide grant funding. So does Google as well, that provides grant funding to diverse founders. You've got individuals. You've got organisations like FSC London that focuses on providing debt funding. You've got the Creative Fund that focuses on businesses in the creative sector, the media sector. So there's a number of different organisations that are available to provide different sources of funding. And again, if you'd like some more support, some more advice, I'm happy to kind of direct you point you in the right direction if that's helpful.
Thank you, Rodney. And so now we'll move on to the next stage of our event, and I want to invite Nana Perry who is the founder of Tectonic, and Nana has been working with Cornerstone Partners and with Rodney. So Nana, I'll start by asking you if you sort of tell us a bit about yourself, and then we'll move to sort of finding out how you and Cornerstone Partners connected and what was the journey like up till now.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me. So, my name's Nana Parry. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Tectonic, and we help B2B businesses understand the needs of their customers. We do that through a mixture of consultancy and digital products, and our goal is to really help businesses understand who their customers are, what their needs are, so they can improve their sales, marketing, and product strategies. So that's a bit about me. I can go straight into how I met Cornerstone, and I actually start with a story, because prior to my running Tectonic, I had a previous business in the music industry and raised some investment from multiple angel investors there. And I remember when I was going through that process of raising, trying to connect with angel investors and raising, I got a really odd question from one of the investors, and that question was, okay, so you're looking for £250,000. Have you asked your parents? And I thought that was from the culture that I've been brought up in, I thought that was a very odd question, and it really made me start to understand why some of the barriers in terms of raising capital were there for those who are minorities or underrepresented. And then, as you know, that first business didn't work out, but I did learn a lot about the process, and I'll be honest, I became quite skeptical about the idea of raising funding again. However, with this new business Tectonic, I was very much on the bootstrap for 25 years if we have to, we'll do what we need to do. And actually, it was through a friend that I met one of the partners at Cornerstone, and we weren't looking for investment, but we were just connecting. And I think going to some of the things Rodney was saying before, just about groups connecting with businesses, regardless of whether they are looking for investment or not. I connected with one of the partners, and it was, built a relationship really over 12 months, just speaking about my business, how, we could help each other, etc. And it was just later.
Anna, just on that, did you always think that venture capital was right for you? Did you always think, were you always aware of venture capital as an asset class?
I would say that I was brought into the sensationalism of VC early on, but then through some research, recognized that for some businesses it makes sense and for others it doesn't. But based on my own ambition, I felt that at some point in time, I may require, that level of funding to be able to reach, financial goals. Yeah.
Fantastic. And so what was it about, was your research quite in depth in terms of the different types of funds that were out there, or did you just, with Cornerstone, was it sort of the first company that approached you that was the right fit? How did you kind of go about assessing whether it was the right fund, the right organization for you and for your business?
Yeah, no, so it's a good question. So I was aware of a number of VCs and angel networks in the space. However, as I kind of mentioned, it wasn't a priority at that time. However, based on the network, the relationship I had with one of the partners, I started to look into Cornerstone a bit more and recognize that they were actually mission driven beyond profit, basically, or beyond just, building up assets. Although that was very interesting. That was the first time I had come across that. And secondly, I think that, when we started to have more conversations and when we first met as well, it was an acknowledgement that it wasn't just mission driven on paper. It was something that, based on just the story of how Cornerstone started, it was something that was close to the hearts of the founders. And it was, it was about this, building more equitable space beyond, when we're all gone, and I thought that was a very powerful message, which perked up my specific interest when I was already kind of in that mindset of, maybe this is something that I don't want to go down. But these were the kind of things that brought me more into the fold.
Yeah, no, that's super awesome. What would be your advice to those considering venture capital as a route? What would you say are the sort of the key considerations that they need to have at the forefront of their minds?
So I do think it very much always starts with the individual in terms of their own goals and what the goals they need for their business, and don't be brought into the fact that you have to go down a certain route. Really assess what your goals are. I think the second thing is not necessarily needing the funding before you start building relationships in the space, because even if it's not on your mind now, especially in the early stage, you don't know where your business necessarily is going to go, and at some point, due to some validation or some product decision, it might actually be really relevant for you. And what you don't want to do is be starting from scratch or starting from zero when you do want that. I think the final thing is do your research, but the aligning with values bit is super, super important, because the likelihood is it's not going to be smooth sailing the whole way, and you're going to need to be able to have conversations with your partners, because when they're investing, they become a partner in your business. You're going to need to be able to have conversations that allow you to come together and come up with a route that you're both bought into. So I'd say those are kind of three things that I would ask people to consider.
And then on the flip side, what would you say of the talk about our experience with Cornerstone, and please feel free to be candid, Nana. What were the bits you didn't like about the process, and what were the bits that you found quite challenging?
I would say that the main thing was really the negotiations when it came to the contractual piece. Obviously, from a Cornerstone or from any VC's point of view, they have a goal. You wouldn't just invest for the sake of it. You want to get a return, right? And I'd say on our side, we have our own goals as well. But I felt the thing that made it a non-issue in effect was kind of the last point I made, which was how you can come together to, come to a mutual agreement on that side. So I would say that was probably the most challenging part. And I think just, making sure we, dot the I's, cross the T's. So if we're going into a new relationship, everyone understands the expectations and on both sides.
And then the other thing as well is that, a lot of VC firms and angel groups, they promise sort of value add.
Mm-hmm.
And, that kind of word of value add, we'll add value to your business. It's going to be more than just money. It's going to be more than just capital. What, in your experience, how has it been in practical terms? How has Cornerstone or your other angel investors helped you to grow your business?
Yeah, I think it's been really good. So I would say that adding value, there's a tangible aspect and there's an intangible aspect. And starting with the intangible, there is a level of cultural freedom that exists when you have investment from people who look like you and understand, where you're coming from. You don't have to explain certain things that otherwise you may have. I remember going into pitch, bringing one of our customers with us and seeing, the room of the partners and recognizing that I have never ever seen this before, in terms of the makeup of the room. So I think there's that intangible side in terms of value of understanding where you're coming from. I think on the tangible side, it is things like, being able to have specific asks around, how I can bring my business forward, be able to take those to, multiple people, not just one individual, but to multiple people, and leverage the network in that space. And also one thing that I think a lot of VCs don't have, in my experience of them, which is business owners within the partners or within the groups. I think that was a huge selling point for me as well, because it is different when you can talk about and share some of the experiences with people who have run the business as well, and having access to different perspectives. So I think it's I would say the intangible. That's how I'd summarize it myself.
Fantastic. And do you want to touch briefly, Nano, on the stresses and strains of just running a business where you're not only responsible for the staff and yourself, but also for your investors? Talk a little bit about that, because I know that you've got a good understanding of that, that well-being piece, which I think is so important. We don't talk about enough in our industry.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're going to have to time box me for sure. But yes, I mean, when you are leading a company, my view is very much, the people don't work for you, you work for them. You're taking them on a journey, on a vision. So a good example is when COVID hit and there was a lot of uncertainty in the market. It was really about, how do I best manage the situation for the people who have come on this journey for me, but also taking care of myself as well. And these other health issues that have not normally in the context when you're building a company. So I would say that, there is no illusion to me that it's the most difficult thing that I've ever done, is to, start something and continue it through difficult periods and continue to try and thrive. However, I will also say it's the most rewarding thing that I've done from a personal growth point of view. Just in itself is incredible. And I'm still learning on the well-being side as well, and trying to recognize where, I have commitment, I have made decisions, and I need to see those through. But alternatively, it should not be done at the expense of my mental or physical health. And finding that balance it's not easy, especially when you're very kind of results driven. It's really not easy. So that's stuff I'm still learning as well. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did. And I'll probably at that point hand back over to Irvin.
Thank you both, Rodney and Anna. Thank you for showcasing a successful relationship between an investor and a startup. I think that's great. So what we're going to do now, I think I'm very conscious of the time. We are going to move to the final stage of the event, and it is me presenting our flagship competition, the Innovation Challenge, which is open only to ethnic minority startups and SMEs. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen, and we will commence very soon. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Brilliant. So, so the Innovation Challenge is our flagship competition. This is a pitching competition that, like I mentioned, is open to ethnic minority startups and businesses only. And the theme for this year's competition is Better Ideas for a Better World. And I just want to give you a bit of background on the competition. When we started in 2017, as an organization, we have mainly focused on SMEs and ethnic minority SMEs. And we've always tried to connect them with corporates. And in 2017, we wanted to do something for startups. So the competition started in 2017. We had, I think we started with 30 applications only. And we are now in our 5th year, and the competition is growing year in, year out. So the competition is designed to promote inclusive innovation and tackle underrepresentation of ethnic minority businesses and startups in the UK. And this is the impact to date. So last year we had 114 applications, and since 2017 we've had 400 plus applications. And last year's startups that took part in the competition, 18% were in idea stage, and about 82% were either launched, revenue, or MVP prototype. And in terms of ethnicity, 46% of the applicants were Asian, 39 were Black, and 16 were from other ethnic minority backgrounds. The ratio between male and female, which we do try very hard to address this, and we do focus on having female founders to take part in the competition last year, was 57 and 43 male to female ratio. So this year the competition has changed. Last year's and the previous year's competition was designed as a catch-all competition and open to all startups. This year, what we're doing, we're focusing on the 17 new and development goals. And the reason for this is because the startups that will take part in this competition, we want to see them make an impact within one of these goals. And these are the categories for the competition. So we got a category on energy and net zero carbon, which is sponsored by Accenture. And we're looking for businesses or startups and SMEs for that matter, that are focused in access to affordable and reliable energy, renewable energy, clean tech, energy efficiency. The next one is advanced digital solutions, which is sponsored by Digital Catapult. And the focus for the startups and SMEs here is to be in future networks, distributed systems, AI and machine learning, and also immersive technology. The other category that we have is facilities and smart buildings, sponsored by Cummins. And the focus is on reduced greenhouse gases, reduce waste, smart buildings, and water consumptions. And healthcare and well-being is another one, which is sponsored by GSK. And this category focuses on pharmaceutical, medical devices, health tech, consumer health. So we are looking for startups and SMEs that are working in those areas. And last but not least, we have social innovation, which is sponsored by EY. And the focus for this category is on meaningful work for the next generation, the future of the workforce, and the collaborative economy. These are the dates for the competition. So the application will close on the 30th of June. On the 15th of July, we will announce the 20 top applicants. 30th of July, we will have the semi-finals where 20 of the highest scoring applicants from the previous rounds will pitch in front of the judges. Then on the 5th of August, we will announce on social media and on other media channels about the 10 finalists that have been selected. There's a pitch training event on the 21st of August for the finalists, and the final or the grand final for the Innovation Challenge is on the 2nd of September. And these are the prizes. So for this year's prizes, the overall winner will get a 5,000 cash prize. We got £50,000 worth of scholarship from the TAC Business School. So what we've done previously, and we'll do this year as well, we have worked with the TAC Business School in the US, and every year we have sent 4 category winners to the US, all expenses paid, to attend one of the TAC scholarship programs that focuses on ethnic minority startups or early stage businesses. There's also £100,000 worth of corporate mentoring from our sponsor Accenture, who are the headline sponsor this year as well. So what Accenture will do, they again will work with the category winners, and they'll pair them up with a mentor where the startups will need it, in what area the startups will need that mentorship and support. And there's also 2 years of free MSD UK membership for all the finalists. And this is the eligibility criteria. So all the participants in the competition should have at least one founder list of ethnic minority, and that founder needs to own 51% of more equity in the business. And I think this is important for us, and the reason why we ask this is because the power of the decision making in the business has to be with a person from the ethnic minority. The second criteria is that applicants can apply for 2 categories simultaneously, but have to indicate that they are making an impact aligned to the category UN SDG goals. And the third criteria is that applicants must be obviously UK citizens, residents, or on a startup or innovator visa. And the last criteria is that this competition is open to startups, SMEs who are at at least MVP stage as a minimum. But I guess that's more for startups, as SMEs are more established. And if you got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. So if you are interested in filling in an application form, please do scan the barcode, and I'll put my details on the chat so you can contact me on email. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'll open to questions if you have any questions about the competition. No questions? Okay, no worries. Well, thank you all. I think Natalie Jameson has raised her hand. Hi, Natalie. Would you be able to write a question on the function, or can you speak?
I can speak. Can you hear me?
Brilliant. Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay, so I'm the founder of an EdTech business, and at the moment we're a sort of traditional classroom trainer, and we're developing AI to accelerate the learning process for digital skills. We're generally working with women and underrepresented groups. So the first one I saw that we could apply for was it the Future of Work Skills? Was it EY?
Yeah, so yeah, you can apply for social innovation category.
Social innovation. Okay, and then because it's the skills for the future of work, I was like, oh, it's that one. Okay, that's it.
You can also apply for advanced digital tech as well. Advanced digital solutions.
Oh, sorry, you just broke up. What did you say?
Advanced digital
solutions. Yeah, so that was my question.
Yes, you can apply for that.
Yeah, so they fit
AI and machine learning, so you qualify to apply for that.
Okay, that's great. Okay,
no
thank
worries.
you very much.
No problem. Any other question? No, I don't see any questions. So I'm very conscious of the time. So I'd like to thank everyone for taking part in this event. I would like to thank our partners at UCL because we did work very closely with them to deliver this event. I'd like to thank Jonathan and the team from the Innovate UK, Alicia from Next Steps. A huge thank to Rodney from Cornerstones and Nana from Tectonic. So it's been great having you all today, and I should see you hopefully in future events that we will organize as part of MSD UK or in partnership with our other partners. So thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you soon. Take care.